The Last Supper was painted here 500 years ago for the refactory of Santa Maria Degratzier. The refactory falls quiet. A long table, a single still moment, and a dozen faces frozen in the painting. Look at each person's hands, clothing, and facial expression. A keen look will help you see beyond the image. Scientists have used scans, restorers have mapped pigments, and historians have helped in tracing their names. Some say there is a secret code in the painting. Others say environmental factors and multiple repairs created the shapes. By stripping away centuries of botched restoration attempts, lines which were crude and inexpressive, and now delicate and refined. By the end, you will know which view fits the evidence and why. But here's the chilling part. Leonardo wasn't just painting a religious moment. Hidden within the walls, the angles and the silence of that room may lie his most dangerous secret. What was he really trying to tell us? The room, the Duke, and the task. Leonardo da Vinci painted the Last Supper on the wall of a dining hall in Milan, called the Refactory. The room belongs to the Dominican convent of Santa Maria Degratzier. Duke Ludovico Sforza asked Leonardo to make the painting between 1495 and 1498. The Duke wanted an image that suited the church and the status of his court. The refactory was a public place where monks ate and visitors saw the house of the Duke and the church together. The subject matched the setting. The Last Supper shows a meal shared together and a key event in the Christian story. It fit the refactory where communal meals took place. Leonardo planned this scene so the painted table faced the real table in the room. That choice made the image part of everyday life in the refactory. The wall panel where Leonardo worked measures roughly 4 by 8 meters. The painting stands across from a smaller work, a crucifixion by Giovanni Donato da Montefano. Above the mural are architectural elements and painted decorations that link the work to the chapel and to the sports family. The placement kept the painting in a space of prayer, politics, and display. Leonardo approached the task with an aim to make a human scene. He set Jesus at the center and arranged the 11 companions in 4 distinct groups. Each group reacts with a different expression. Hands, heads, and bodies form short scenes inside the main picture. Light from the windows behind Jesus makes the central figure brighter and is the reason behind the gestures around him. The method Leonardo chose was not the normal wet plaster fresco. He worked on a dry sealed wall and used mixed media that let him layer paint slowly. The approach allowed soft edges, blended skin tones, and subtle detail. It let Leonardo rework their faces and gestures as he progressed. That working style gave him control over fine expression, but also meant the paint sat on the surface rather than sinking into wet plaster. The commission fit within a larger building program in Milan. Architects such as Donato Bramante were active in the city at that time. The ducal court supported music, sculpture, and new buildings. Leonardo moved between painting and scientific study while he worked for the Duke. His presence at Santa Maria Degratzier joined him to a circle of artists, engineers, and patrons who changed Milan in the late 15th century. Leonardo painted slowly. Records show he took time to try poses, refine hands, and change details. He placed figures on a low bench and used the architecture of the painted room to echo the real space. The plan is a balanced narrative action and calm focus on Jesus. The composition and scale fit the refactory and the needs of the patron. The job required skill, imagination, and decisions about materials and space. The choice of subject, the size of the wall, the patron who ordered it, and the relation to the room all shaped how Leonardo worked. The Last Supper began as a commission tied to power and worship, and it became a test of new methods and creative design. The work also linked art, faith, and the Duke's public image perfectly well. But here's the hidden twist. Leonardo's genius was also his greatest gamble. The very method that gave the Last Supper its lie-like glow would also seal its fragile fate. How long could such beauty survive? How Leonardo painted it and what time did to it. Leonardo used a slow method for the Last Supper. He painted on a sealed wall with dry layers. He mixed oil and tempera instead of working on wet plaster. This choice lets him blend skin tones and smooth transitions. It also let him correct faces and gestures as he continued with the work. He aimed for softer light and finer detail than a true fresco would allow. That method caused problems over time. The paint sat on the wall surface instead of sinking into fresh plaster. Moisture and salts in the wall made the paint lift and flake. Smoke, dust, and humidity gathered on the surface. Over centuries, people tried repairs that used heavy paint and hard varnish. Those repairs changed the look of faces and clothes. Early restorers in the 16th and 17th centuries made quick repairs. They painted over losses and filled holes. In the 18th and 19th centuries, replicas and copies circulated that showed how people then read the scene. Some copists altered gestures or faces to suit local taste. Those copies later made it harder to know Leonardo's original choices. The refactory suffered more damage in the 20th century. During World War II, the building received hits from bombs. Sandbags were stacked to protect artworks. A doorway was cut into the wall near the painting before. That cut removed part of the lower edge and forced later repairs. Attempts to move the painting failed and raised worries for conservators. A large modern restoration began under the direction of Pin Brambola Barcelon. The team worked from 1978 to 1999. They removed layers of dirt and discolored varnish. They used solvents and fine tools to lift over paint added after Leonardo. The goal was to reveal the original paint where it survived and to stabilize what remained. Scientific tools guided the work. Infrared reflectography showed underdrawing and changes Leonardo made while planning. X-ray imaging revealed denser pigments and later fills. Ultraviolet light showed where varnish had been applied. Chemical tests identified original pigments and later substances. These techniques let the team tell original strokes from later touches. The restoration raised questions. Some people said the team removed too much in places. Other experts praised the careful work and the use of science. Conservators took note of the gaps where paint was lost and creatively fixed them. Those decisions mean viewers can now see the original paint and careful reconstruction. After the restoration, the site received new protection. Climate control was installed in the refractory to reduce humidity swings. Access was limited to small groups to reduce heat and carbon dioxide from visitors. The church and authorities set strict rules to keep the wall safe and to slow its decay. A technical study also showed how Leonardo changed his mind while working. Infrared images reveal pentimenti, or drawn changes where he shifted heads or arms. Those marks prove that Leonardo reworked their poses and adjusted compositions. In some places, the underdrawing lines. Do not match the surface paint because later hands repainted lost areas. The painting we see today carries traces of Leonardo and centuries of change. The materials he chose allowed detailed work, but made the surface fragile. Repairs, wartime threats, and restoration choices have all been layered onto the original design. Scientific study helps separate some layers and shows how the painting changed through time. But beyond the brushstrokes and centuries of repair lies a deeper puzzle. The people within the scene. Who exactly are these figures surrounding Jesus, and why did Leonardo arrange them in this way? Names of those at the table. The painting places Jesus at the center and shows 12 companions around him. Each figure has a name, and they are universally known. From left to right, the usual list reads Bartholomew, James the Lesser, and Andrew. The next group shows Judas Iscariot, Simon Peter, and John. Jesus sits under a bright window. To his right are Thomas, James the Greater, and Philip. At the far right sit Matthew, Jude, Thaddeus, and Simon the Zealot. Bartholomew stands near the table edge, body turned to face the center. James the Lesser sits tense and wide-eyed. Andrew pulls back with raised hands. These three act as a group of startled witnesses. Judas Iscariot sits in shadow in the next group. He leans away and holds a small purse and several readings. His posture is closed compared with Peter, who leans in with a small knife visible in his right hand. John appears beside Peter with a youthful, smooth face. Leonardo often painted young men with soft features and long hair, which explains John's look here. Jesus sits still in the center. The window behind him throws light that frames his head. His hands hover near the bread and a cup on the table. The placement of Jesus and the bright opening behind him make him the visual anchor. On Jesus' right, Thomas raises a finger and seems to press a point. James the Greater covers his mouth with both hands. Philip leans forward with palms open, seeking an answer. Those gestures show disbelief mixed with a demand for clarity. At the far right, Matthew turns toward Jude Thaddeus as if he is speaking. Jude looks towards Jesus with a heavy brow. Simon the Zealot holds his beard and listens. The three form a group moving from a talk in the back to the center. Leonardo grouped the 12 into 4 trios. Each trio acts like a short scene that adds rhythm to the whole picture. Heads and hands create lines that move attention around the table. The table becomes a stage where small actions carry the main moment. To confirm names, scholars use many signs. They read hand positions, where eyes point, and which gestures match gospel lines. They also compare copies and related paintings to find repeated patterns. Painters in Leonardo's circle, often called the Leonardeschi, copied the design. Notable followers include Giotrino Andrea Solario and Marco Dogiono. Those copies preserve poses and faces that help scholars decide which parts came from Leonardo. One well-known copy, the Tungerlo Supper, shows many of the same poses. That panel helps reveal studio work and small shifts in form. By matching details across the Milan wall and workshop copies, experts build a map of which gestures and face types belong to the original plan. The soft face of John catches attention because Leonardo used gentle features for young male figures in other works. That style detail explains why John differs from Peter and Judas. Each name on the wall ties a painted pose to gospel tradition or to later improvements, giving scholars the basis to name the figures. But despite all the careful study, one detail kept sparking whispers far beyond the art world. If Leonardo truly meant John, why did so many believe otherwise? The claim that would not quit. There is this idea that drew attention. Some writers and researchers said the figure to Jesus' right was Mary Magdalene rather than John. The claim grew larger after Dan Brown wrote a novel that put the idea at the center of a plot. The book named the figure Mary and said secret bloodlines and family lines followed. The story made people look at the painting differently. Art historians answered with facts. They pointed to the style Leonardo used for young men. John often appears with soft features in Renaissance art. That choice came from tradition and from how artists taught faces. Scholars also took a keen look at the painting's technical record. The face near Jesus shows signs consistent with John when compared to Leonardo's other works and to workshop copies. That match argues the figure is John. Another point came from conservation work. The painting has lost much paint, and some visible lines come from later repairs. Where a detail survives only in a later repaint, it cannot be read as Leonardo's intent. The underdrawing and scientific photos help guide the discussion. When experts compare infrared images and later paint layers, the weight of evidence supports John. The book and later films fueled serious discussions. Tourists and writers searched for signs and for a story that would bring in some new information. Television shows and online videos used pattern matching and visual tricks to link the figure to Mary. They used small similarities in face shape or in hair to claim a different gender. For many viewers, the image fit the story they wanted. Scholars named a few reasons the Mary idea fails as proof. First, Leonardo used young male models and stylized faces for certain apostles. Second workshop copies from Leonardo's circle place the same figure as John in nearly identical ways. Third, the science of imaging finds an original underdrawing that matches John as a male disciple. These lines of evidence reduce the chance that Leonardo painted Mary instead. People approach this matter differently. Some based their understanding on conspiracy theories, while some reasoned based on facts. That division made the painting a stage for two kinds of stories. One side relies on careful study and lab results. The other side relies on pattern reading and popular thrills. The novel and media kept the claim alive, and new videos added layers of theory about secret marriages and revised church histories. Some authors found older texts, odd medieval claims to support the tale. Others pointed to older art used for symbolic reasons. The gap between a literary thriller and art history kept the story alive. In short, the Mary Magdalene idea moved from a small theory into a mass story. Experts pushed back with methods and names, citing studio copies, technical photos, and conservation reports. The truth of the painting's figures depends on lines under the paint and on stable documents from the time. Those records favor the old reading that the figure is John the Apostle rather than Mary Magdalene. But if the old records seem to close the case, the new tools threaten to reopen it. What if technology could peer beneath centuries of paint and uncover something the experts missed? What AI actually did this time? A team fed high-resolution photos, infrared reflectograms, multispectral scans, and X-ray maps into a machine learning program. The program studied face shapes, hand positions, brush strokes, and lightfall. It compared those patterns to hundreds of works by Leonardo and his circle. Then it mapped similar lines on the Milan wall. The software highlighted repeated shapes, underdrawing matches, and echoes in studio copies. 3 clear markers rose above the others. The first marker is a jaw shift on the figure to Jesus' right. Infrared under-D drawing shows a curved line near the ear. The surface paint sits a little forward from that curve. The program matched that curved line to the same shape in a Gampetrino copy and on the Tungerlo panel. The match appears in original layers, not only in later repaints. The second marker is a hand near Judas. The underdrawing drew a compact grip low at the table edge. Surface paint shows longer fingers. The program found the longer fingers repeated in 4 Leonardeschi works. That repetition links the gesture to a repainting and to a deliberate change in pose. The third marker is a faint draft line behind Jesus. Visible light treats it as a shadow. Infrared shows a clear draft stroke. The machine stacked layers and found the stroke curves in a faint arc in a Solario copy. The arch frames a small area where the window light narrows. The 3 markers fall on a single visual line from the disciple's jaw through Jesus and down to the hand near Judas. Read together. The 3 markers form a strong axis. The program plotted where Leonardo drew, erased, and redrew that axis. The jawline moves. The hand shifts. The draft arc alters. Those moves are recorded in the underdrawing and in original pigment tests from the modern restoration. The pattern is not scattered. It guides the eye along the table and across the figures. The program also scored facial geometry. It measured brow angle, jaw slope, and cheek form against a portrait database from the late 15th century. Greenway, a filmmaker and painter, is fascinated with finding new ways to see classic works, like the Last Supper. A 15th century mural painting which represents Jesus' Last Supper as described in the Gospel. On that test, the disciples fit male templates used by Leonardo for young followers in other works. A hairline curve at the jaw matched a few workshop copies with softer faces, which gave the program a mixed signal. The mix shows planned ambiguity more than error. Next, the system compared pigment maps from 1978 to 1999 restoration led by Pin Brambola Barcolon. Where tests showed original pigment beneath later paint, the jaw shift and the draft arc were present on original layers. Where a detail rests only on later paint, the program noted it as secondary. The machine treated original paint and underdrawing as primary evidence. The combined result reads as a layered message. Leonardo drew a male face, then moved that line. He changed a hand and laid an arc behind Jesus. His studio replicated those moves in copies. Later repairs filled losses, but original strokes and repaint echoes remained discoverable. The machine connected those strokes across layers and worked, offering a single clear visual line. That line ties the disciple to Jesus and to Judas by placement and by repeated gesture. It suggests a deliberate plan in which pose and touch guide attention along a designed route through the scene. The program rated the alignment as intentional and early in the planning stage. It placed the core marks in under-D drawing and in pigment tests that date to Leonardo's time. The machine found a coherent axis across under-drawing original pigment and studio copies that links jaw hand and a draft arc into a single planned composition. The axis crosses Leonardo and his workshop. The program labeled that axis as a designed visual statement embedded in the painting plan. This axis affects how we read the scene. The program's reading places emphasis on relation and sequence. It shows choices in pose and light meant to pull the viewer's eye, the what the axis signals, touch identity direction, and the ordering of gestures. The painting we see today is a mix of Leonardo's hand later repairs and studio echoes. AI can point at shapes and patterns. As we all know, the final answer depends on under-D drawings, pigment maps, and careful study by experts. That is it for today. For more interesting stories, click on to our next video. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. You can also share this video with your friends and family. Thank you for watching till the end. Bye.